After a gruesome contest in the grassroots that was at some point bloody and deadly, the political contest is now back in Parliament. NASA as a coalition is facing a unity test with members from the coast, lower eastern and western Kenya threatening to break away over the House minority leadership selection criteria. On the larger scale, both Jubilee and NASA face a challenging task of picking members for the East African Legislative Assembly. NASA presented a list of 12 nominees and Jubilee presented a list of 15. Lists that have individuals who lost in the August 8th general election and those who want a slice of the political pie for their contribution in the party's political quest. Welcome back. You are watching News Center. That is definitely a top story at this hour. It's time we get into that conversation with my panelists here. Once again, I will reintroduce them to you. Pamela Odhiambo on my immediate right is the women representative of the county of Migori. Thank you. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And we have Rehema Dida, who's the women representative of the county of Isiolo. Thank you. It's the first time, so I'm glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
And being women, I would just want to start with your reaction of that IALA list that came out, both from the Jubilee side and the NASA side. Does it represent what you as a woman would like to see at IALA? I'll start with you, Pamela.
Thank you very much. I think this list was presented and quite a number of legislators did not seem very happy. But all the same, the underlying bottom principle is that all these people are either members of NASA or members of Jubilee. And I think from the NASA list, much as I would have loved to see more women on it, but I think there are some. We have women, we have one from Northeastern, we have somebody from Beth, we have... So at least there is a mixture, but it is not as much as I thought it should be.
As you would have expected.
Yeah.
For you, Rehema?
Thank you. I think, let me say, at least I give Jubilee a credit on that, in that we have more women. We have people living with a disability, at least it's like one person there. And when you look at the list, it's quite balanced in terms of regional representation. So in my opinion, I think we have quite a pool of nominees to select from.
There has been a lot of noise from the NASA list from yesterday, and not just from the Yala list. Later on, we will be getting into the leadership of the National Assembly. But looking at both lists, the narrative or a pattern has been established that it is now a position meant to reward political loyalists in parties or relatives, because in both lists we have relatives of the party leadership.
I think these narratives are always there, colleagues, because one thing I think I want us to look at it this way. All these people who are in this list, they are people who have been either working for the party in one way or another. And you see, it is the parties to nominate. So the parties can nominate from the list of the collection of people that they have. Again, some of them had attempt to stand and they campaigned and they lost and something like that. Then the issue of relatives or no relatives, personally, I would like to put it this way. Sometimes I think we go overboard in terms of looking at things, because much as I am a Kenyan, you know, my son or daughter or brother is also a Kenyan. If they apply and they're qualified for something, to be honest, it would be very bad to disqualify them just on the context that they are my daughter, because they also have their lives to lead. They also have their ambitions. They have their own interests. And I think I am not talking about this just in the political arena. I think I've been in the work place for quite a long time now. I was a high school teacher for about 20 years. I've worked at the university for about 8 or so years. And what I have always seen when it comes to interviews of any sort, you'll find people accusing the executive and of this and this is only employing their people and something like that. And we forget that even these people, all of us human beings on earth, in my understanding, and especially from this Christian ideology, we all originated from the same family. So in one way or another, we are related. we are related. Even if I come from the west, she comes from the north and east. If you looked at the string, you'll find that we could be related in one way or another. So the concept of relatives, I think I would want, much as I don't want to encourage direct rewarding of, say, my children just because they are my children. But I think, again, if they have got an interest and they are qualified to do the job, they should be considered.
The conversation has been, of course, you bring up qualification. That has always been the counter-argument when the narrative comes up that you're rewarding relatives. But the argument consistently is the relatives are about 80 years old. They have been in the public service for the longest time. Is it not time to give it to someone else?
Of course, like everybody would expect. Sometimes a change is as good as rest.
Yes.
But again, the concept of relatives is something that I think, as for me, it's something I would like to consider on its own without having to attach it to something else. So if we are talking about the issue of giving somebody else a chance, then that would be a valid conversation. Because in my perspective, what I think for any appointment, for any place, some responsibility given to somebody, I think we are working in the era of what I would call value addition. Does the appointment of so-and-so add value? What value are they coming in with, and this kind of thing? I think my advice or my take, if I was to be the one sitting on the nominating desk, I would question the concept of value. What value are we adding? What value does so-and-so carry with him or her? And I think if we can look at it that way, then at some stage we may realize, okay, so-and-so may have been good, but considering what the objective and what value we need here, then so-and-so would be the best, something like that.
Your thoughts on relatives and the age concept of the whole nomination list?
Thank you so much. I think, in my view, first of all, NASA is a big movement. They have over 6 million plus following. They have quite a number of professionals in it. They have a pool of qualified women in it. They have a pool of qualified young men and women who are really very passionate. And what I expected to see was a diverse kind of nominee. That doesn't mean I'm questioning the credentials and the credibility of the nominees. However, there is an issue of moral standing here. There is an issue of, wider representation here. When we see the kind of people that we've seen, for example, the nominee in the name of Dr. Oburu Odinga, I guess Dr. Oburu Odinga has had the opportunity to serve this Kenya in many avenues. I remember him being assistant minister at one time, a member of parliament, the longest I can remember. So honestly, with all the due respect, I expected him to, give that opportunity to other Kenyans. Okay? In terms of relatives, there is no constitutional provision that's bar any relative from being, appointed to positions. However, it raises again the issue of, as a leader, are you broad enough to bring everybody on board? Do you have that moral standing that you want to share? Because politics is about sharing. So when every other time you get an opportunity, you try to bring in your relative, your close friend, I think that will portray that leader as selfish. If I will just take you back into NASA or ODM leadership, the concerns out there has been, especially to the party leader, that he is always creating opportunity for those closer to him. If you go back to the former Deputy Governor Kisumu, the sister to the former Prime Minister, the former Member of Parliament, Joko Midiwa, also a relative, And quite a number of people, even when the Prime Minister was in the office, quite a number of people, even in foreign offices, at the embassies, are relatives. So my concern is really, I think NASA is not just a small movement. NASA is a huge movement with followings. I know they did not campaign in Isiolo County, but still they managed to get 18,000 voters. So those voters from Isiolo are well schooled. They expected to be nominated in those lists. I know some. If you look at the chances that they have in Yala, they have, I think, about 3. So if Oburu...
And that is also a contention. Do they have 3? Do they have 4? Does Jubilee have 6 or 5?
Well, Jubilee has 5, yeah, and NASA as a coalition have 4. So if you now put, Oburu Odinga number 1, Kennedy Kalonzo number 2, really, that really, in my view, raises a lot of eyebrows. Yes.
So we are rewarding our relatives.
We are rewarding, which in my view is not morally right.
Thank you very much. But allow me to correct all of us. I think your question was very inclusive. The issue of that list, the relatives or whatever, or the recycling, is not just in NASA. If you look at that...
goes both ways, actually.
Yeah. If you look at the Jubilee list, it is equally...
Jubilee does not have a relative of the president or the deputy president?
Listen, it may be a relative of president or not a president, but somebody who is also prominent in that party. So if we back to the narrative that my colleague was raising, I think when we look at the concept of relations in Kenya, that's why I was saying it may be a very tricky thing just to use it to judge one particular individual. In the past, we have seen people like Beth Mugo, the Muohos, and all these people. They are all related to the Kenyatta family, and that is a fact. To the Kenali Makwere and the rest, we can all trace them. And we have seen also these people occupying very prominent positions in the government. So when we are talking about here today, I think I liked the way you framed the whole question, that both lists seem to consist of people who are either being repeated for some key positions, or they are closely associated or related to one of the key leaders in the movement. And I think if you read that list, there is some Mohammed, a lady from the region.
Eden Mohammed.
Yes, yes.
That is in Jubilee.
That is in Jubilee. You're saying
Fatuma Ibrahim is the ODM nominee.
Fatuma Ibrahim is the ODM nominee,
yes. So the region you are talking about is also represented according to NASA. And what we are saying is, I wish we would approach this thing from an objective position and not just another NASA Jubilee affair. Because if we look at it keenly, even if somebody was to do an independent study and research in the composition of our government, even those seats of the PSS and what have you, you'll find that, like when you are talking about NASA leader creating chance A4, I thought Nyong'o actually created his own chance, and he said he wanted to go being the governor there. We could also say this other side, I'm very happy for Waiguru, but we could also say she was also helped and created for a chance that way. So in politics, again, madam, what I think is the truth is that people support them that support them. And that is also a fact that we cannot run away from. But my concern is when we are criticizing or praising, then I would pray that we be a little more objective. The issue is, yes, these people, both from both lists, they look repeated. But then my question was, what is the value, of doing that? And these are the things that we may need to investigate, that we may need to understand, so that we don't just accuse. Because if it is a matter of saying so and so has been this and this, I think all these people have been the same. Like even in that case, somebody would wonder, why would Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto want to be president again? They have been before, so they should pave way for somebody else. And I think what I would like to emphasize in this, yes, the issue of relationships, we cannot run away from it. Because like me,
I think Pamela is overemphasizing. You see, what we are discussing.
Of course.
What we are discussing is the Yala list. Yeah. And when you look at the list critically, you talked about the issue of relatives being brought in. We do not have that in Jubilee. If you go through the list,
I don't believe in that.
The list I think the list is in public domain. We can critique it. We can even have it here. We do not have that in Jubilee. In terms of regional representation, the people who are in Jubilee list are fairly distributed. And I do not see a repetitive, maybe one or two, but I do not see quite a repetitive, personalities in there. For example, number one on the list is Florence Jematia. Jematia is a youth. I think she's barely in her 30s. She's never stood for any political office. She's a professional because it's a lady I've had pleasure to have worked with. Okay, followed on that list is a person living with a disability.
That's Wanjiko Mohia.
I'm not going in terms of now the women only. The next Jematia is Mr. Koskei.
Yes,
is a person living with a disability, which in NASA I don't even know whether they have that. I stand to be corrected, Pamela. So the issue here, we are not talking about maybe, we are not talking about the past per se. I was just trying to bring in the past to emphasize the issue of relatives. But what we're trying to look here at is even this list as it is now, okay? You have the son of the former Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka. I personally do not have a problem because he is a young Kenyan, deserving. But we are saying there is issue of morals here. You are a leader. You are not a clan leader. You are not a village elder. You are a national leader with a sycophantic following. You know, the kind of people supporting NASA are so emotional, you know, and they have no lack for qualification. They have no lack for representation. They are everywhere. For heaven's sake, I just told you, 18,000. They never came to campaign in my county. But still, the young people felt like they want to support them. So, really, we are saying, why confined into relative? And honestly, I'm trying to just be very objective.
Well spoken.
Yes, quickly, I would want to respond to that quickly.
What I would like to say here is, yes, these people also express their interest. And according to me, I don't think the fact that the list is headed by Oburu and then the Musyoka and all that confines the panel to just pick it the way it is. And that's why there is vetting. Now, the concept of representation, I think I've already talked about what I think about relations.
Yes, Pamela.
It is well represented. All the NASA teams from all over the country, there is somebody who is in that list.
Yes, and I want us to get back to that shortly.
I really don't think that the concept of representation is questionable in that list.
Quickly, let me cut you short for just a bit.